Okay, guys, so one time I went to a college party and I dressed up as Cleopatra, okay? And there was someone else at that party who had blue eyes and brown hair. And she also dressed up like Cleopatra. And in my opinion, I did make a slightly better Cleopatra, okay? So where am I going with this? I think that there is so much to be learned from how our ancestors dressed themselves, what it is that they found flattering, and oftentimes the aspects of dress from our ancestors' culture can often be so indicative on what may look good on us. Now, this can be a little bit of an uncomfortable topic for some people because, a lot of us are, and a lot of people who watch me, they are they could be mixed race, they could be people who have moved, like people who are second generation immigrants, first generation immigrants, things like that. And we may not always feel comfortable. I know for myself, I consider myself to be American, right? But I also have ancestors who are from Yemen, from North Africa, things like that, okay? And when you look at how your ancestors dressed, you can really get a sense of some amazing looks for yourself. And I find that that's just a beautiful way to respect how you look. Oftentimes, when people are living in a place like the US or a place like the UK or Europe, but they don't appear to be basically European or American in a way, although what does it mean to be American since we're supposed to be a melting pot? But anyway, if they don't appear that way, oftentimes the styles and the colors and just the accessories, everything of those regions may not actually flatter them as much as you would hope. And so I think that there is a lot to be learned from the cultures of our ancestors. Now, that doesn't mean that we would appropriate a culture that's not really ours in a way, but it does help to draw inspiration, maybe for the colors, maybe for some of the lines. Like, for example, if you think about Indian culture and women in India, and think about the traditional dress of India and the saris and the gold and the bright colors like reds, like bright red. Those, and the saris are always like very lightweight fabrics usually. Those are so flattering on a lot of Indian ladies because Indian ladies from India, are often olive in tone, and so reds are actually particularly flattering on them. These ladies are also often petite and small and curvy, and so they tend to be like kibby romantics, you see. Not all of them, obviously, okay, but a lot of them, because they're petite, they have a certain type of body shape, they have a certain type of bone structure, and bright colors really flatter them. They flatter their bone structure as well. And so those bright colors look beautiful on them, and a lot of gold and a lot of jewelry looks beautiful on them. And that's what that culture has grown to sort of wear. The women, when they dress up in India in traditional outfits, they wear all of these beautiful colors, all of these tons of gold and things like that, and that's because it is actually very flattering on them. Now, of course, if you take that to the UK and you have someone who is just very light with blue eyes and black hair, and they're cool tone, and they're wearing like bright red and gold and everything, it's going to be so unflattering, Those people look completely different. And that's why, if you think about historical, like English fashion, if you think about all of this sort of Victorian fashion, it's often things that are like more pastels, light colors, ivory, things like that would be very flattering on people from that region. And even if you don't resonate, like even if your culture is more English, if you are someone who has the look or the ethnicity of your ancestors, you may want to look at how they traditionally dress, like the traditional dress of your ethnicity and of your ancestors, and that may really inform how you style yourself. Of course, maybe just in terms of color choices, or maybe just in terms of accessories or something like that. And that may be a fun way and self-honoring way to respect your own beauty. And I really love that for people. I've had the opportunity to work with people from all over the world. The nature of my business is that I do things online. So sometimes people are booking me from other countries and they don't even speak English. And they're like, one lady, she was like, I'm from Ethiopia. I'm using a translator to write you this email. And it was just so amazing, and this is what I do, is I work with all kinds of different women to help them figure out what flatters them, and what looks good on them. And oftentimes when I come up with their body type, with their color type, with their essence, sometimes, usually it's the color type and body type that will be very consistent with probably what their ancestors would have worn, you see? And so I really like it when you can come to the same conclusion from all kinds of different directions, because that really, to me, means that you are coming to a pretty good conclusion, and even without taking their culture into account or their ancestry into account, because I don't take culture or ancestry into account directly with my systems, like with artistic license, my color analysis system, or with body geometry, my body typing system. It's not a direct factor at all. But what I find is that when I do get the colors out and the body type out and I get the recommendations out, oftentimes the recommendations are very much in line with what people historically would have worn with that ethnicity. Again, not always. And sometimes someone is, their essence is very different from the lines and colors. And I talk about that, in the full report, like how to marry those things and how to make sense of your lines and colors and your essence together. So if you're interested in any of that, I'll leave a link to all of those things in the description. I always do. And there are so many videos on my channel, you guys, about how to find your lines, how to find your colors. There's a ton of videos on the olive skin tone. And if you are East Asian, let's say you are from China, Japan, Korea, that's another thing. It's like, oftentimes, we kind of associate, I believe it's in China, like the color red is very important, and oftentimes people wear red on special occasions. And, in part, it's just red looks very, very good on people from China, because people from China are very high contrast. They usually have light skin and they have very dark hair, usually almost black hair, not always, sometimes brown. And their skin is olive. You guys, 99%. If you are from China, Japan, South Korea, you are olive, okay? And red and green work beautifully together. So olive is green and red, that traditional color, that just looks beautiful because of the high contrast, but the contrast between red and green, they're complementary colors. And people who are from these regions are also high contrast in terms of their features. They have dark hair and light skin, okay? And so the contrast between the red and the green is sort of like mirroring the contrast between their features and their hair. And that can be very, very flattering and very nice. And so I just think there's so much to be learned from taking a look at how people have historically dressed themselves, who may look more like you. And I just think it's so much fun. So I think this is all I had to say. It's a bit of a shorter video, but that's all I had to say. Let me know your thoughts on this topic. I'd be curious to know if you have found more self-acceptance or more self-love through looking into what people wore who are your ancestors. I'd be very curious to know that. Also, if you have other examples, like I gave India and kind of like East Asia and China as an example, but do you have other examples? If you would leave those in the comments, I'd be so interested to hear about them. If you have other examples of how people dress in different regions of the world and how that complements their features, that would be so interesting to me, because that's something that I've just been interested in recently. And I think that's it. So I will talk about my consults. If you're not aware of what they are, what they include. So the color typing is a color typing. It gives you your best colors and your most flattering colors. And there's a small section, if your body type affects your color recommendations, I will mention it in the color typing. Then there is the body typing, which will give you your most flattering silhouettes, your most flattering lines, and your most flattering like makeup style, as well as hair. And then there is the full report, which includes the body typing, the color typing, as well as essence and how your body and color type interact, as well as a priority area. So the full report is sort of like everything, just like it sounds, like the full report. And all of the links to all of that stuff is down below, as usual. And yeah, I have a ton of videos. If you're new here, I have a ton of videos on my channel all about honoring how you look, your lines, your colors, and everything in between. So take a look around my channel and see what you think. And of course, leave me a comment as usual. And I will talk to you next time. Okay.